Congress is looking at remedies for the high cost of prescription drugs. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar is testifying to a Senate committee this morning about a White House plan to lower prices. Nearly 2 years after taking heat for the rising cost of EpiPens, pharmaceutical giant Mylan is making strides in the fast-growing biosimilar market. Biosimilars are drugs and devices made to be similar to already approved products, potentially lowering the cost of treatment. Mylan won FDA approval last week for a biosimilar drug designed to help some cancer patients reduce infection risk during chemotherapy. Heather Bresch is the CEO of Mylan. She joins us only on CBS This Morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lots to talk to you about. A lot of people on cancer drugs say they're tens and tens of thousands of drugs. What would this new FDA approval do with the biosimilar that your company is producing?
Look, it's an important milestone for patients and our healthcare system. As you just said, these are drugs that cost tens of thousands of dollars, costing billions to our system. So as we're able to bring the first biosimilar product to Neulasta, this important product, it's a marker to what we have to continue to do. Our commitment to access to bring, actually, we have one of the largest pipelines of biosimilars in the industry.
Is that new, these biosimilars?
Yeah, I was trying to figure that. What are they exactly?
So biosimilars, if we quickly think about a drug is made with chemicals. A biologic comes from a living cell, a protein, a tissue. So you can imagine the complexity, the molecular structure of a biologic is just that way more complicated than that of, say, aspirin or a tablet or capsule. So as we think about these biologics, they're typical injectable drugs, and they're obviously very difficult to replicate. So biologics have been around for quite a while. The FDA has continued to work with industry to how can we have the rigor around making sure we can bring affordable alternative options to biologics, and those are biosimilars. And Dr. Gottlieb has spoken quite a bit about how much they're needed in our system and how much that they're going to reduce the burden of the healthcare system overall.
So help us understand the reduction in that burden. People usually, when you talk about the reduction in the burden, they talk about generics. So what's the difference, first of all? And then second of all, how much of a cost reduction are we talking about here? Big savings? Can you give us some kind of percentage or numbers?
Sure. So as someone who's been making generics for almost 60 years, Mylan has over 7,000 products, over 600 here in the United States. So we're one of the leading providers of generic medicines. When we talk about biosimilars, they're just that. They're similar to the biologic. Because you're talking about living organisms and replicating and showing that they work, they're clinically equivalent. They're given the word biosimilar versus saying a generic to the biologic. So that's really the main difference. But from a science perspective, you know, FDA has put a lot of rigor around making sure that they're going to work the same for patients.
And then savings that can be achieved?
Savings, significant savings. As we said, tens of thousands of dollars. We'll be launching our biosimilar to Neulasta in the coming weeks at a significant reduction, you know, double digits reduction.
Heather, you and I have talked over the years about a number of things, and specifically because EpiPen Mylan makes the EpiPen.
Yes.
What did you learn from that experience and the controversy surrounding that price hike?
Well, the first important thing I learned that when you're in the middle of a crisis, no one wants to hear the rationale or a justification for it. So we took immediate steps to put a half-priced product into the market and make sure we were reaching those patients at the pharmacy counter, because that's not who healthcare is working for today. Since then, I would say over these last couple of years, my commitment was to continue to talk about the system and that EpiPen was actually a window into the broken system and not working for patients today. And I think that conversation has evolved tremendously, especially given the president's blueprint that came out over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, you took the heat and you're still standing, but you want people to know you're much bigger. There's more to this company than EpiPen.
Much more.
To what
I mean,
you all do.
we've been committed to access for almost 60 years and fighting, actually been the underdog, bringing these important, affordable alternatives to patients. We have the largest cancer portfolio, diabetes, cardiovascular. So we have a vast array of products, and our commitment not only from bringing access, but investing. I mean, these products take years.
Who's tackling this problem? The cost of drugs is too high.
Too high.
Is the president taking action? Is it? And I know
Well, in January, the president said Americans would see a substantial reduction in the cost of drugs. A, is that possible, substantial? And second of all, what is it like to have the president put his finger on your industry? Because some people have seen, particularly anybody who does outsourcing, a lot of public pressure comes on them that they don't exactly want. So talk about that. And is there an opportunity here at the president's leadership for substantial reduction in drug costs?
Look, I applaud the president. I said when we spoke 18 months ago, if there's one thing you can say about this president, he's solution-oriented and not afraid to be disruptive. You can't take a system that's been built over 50 years and think that you can just superficially or through a soundbite change it. When you think about, as a country, we spend $3.3 trillion on health care, which is almost more than double than any other country, and we have one of the worst outcomes for people. So the system, the entire system is broken. When we're talking just about pharmaceuticals, I think that as the president has talked about a blueprint for how do we make it market-based and how do we bring transparency. And I think that that would bring tremendous savings to patients.
But that sounds a lot more slow than what he's promising. Very substantial, fast reduction in cost. So is his promise unrealistic?
No, I would say that many of the things outlined in his blueprint are administrative actions. So these aren't things that would take a long period of time. I mean, there are things that certainly Secretary Azar through HHS and administrative powers that they could absolutely bring transparency. I mean, when you think about shopping, over-the-counter medicine, you have choices, brand, generics, you know what they cost. We have zero ability to know when you walk up to that pharmacy counter what a product is going to cost, any product. And the reality is every time you go to fill that prescription, could cost something different depending where you are in your deductible.
This is your point because Mylan is the second largest provider of prescription drugs in the country. Your point is that there's a lot of middlemen or middle women taking a cut at different points in the drug price that go into that big drug price.
That's right. There's a huge disconnect. And if you think a few years ago, you could have paid a copay, $5, $10, $20. That had no relation to what the value of what you were getting. So we did a disservice for patients. And today, we need some rules of the road. We need people, patients, to be engaged in their health care, and they need to be able to use data and technology to make sure they're making the best option for their illness.
All right. Heather Bresch, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.